What's going on YouTube? Welcome to how to paint a portrait of a puppy. So in today's video, we are going to create this painting that you see here. This is the first portrait of our puppy Hugo. So what I'm going to do is go through the entire technique involved in it minus the color. So we're going to go with video now. We're going to play the video. And some of you may be wondering why I'm not going to talk about the color. And one reason is going to be that if you're concerned with painting a portrait of a pet, a puppy, or with anything is color, then there are some different videos out there that I have for you. This one is going to be not about the color. This one's going to be about the technique, excuse me, involved in doing this. So I am thinning out the paint with a mixture of spiked lavender and Gamsol, and I'm using black paint and burnt sienna, probably a touch of blue for the background. And I'm covering the silhouette of where the dog is going to fit. And this is going to be the first important thing to think about, which is going to be the placement. And you can do this however you want. You can do this just like any other portrait. Just go with the silhouette and then basically figure out where you want everything to fit. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going with the silhouette, and as you see already, we have the placement of the dog. And I tell you one thing, it is that simple. Just go all around the silhouette and you have your placement in a nutshell. It doesn't have to be very precise, doesn't have to be very pretty, but you can see already in the, like minute or so, we know exactly where we're going to have puppy placed. And then we're gonna just go and paint right into that. Hey Lady Death, welcome, welcome. Hey Canvas Dancer. Hey Sweeta. In acrylic paint, no, this wouldn't be possible. One reason this wouldn't be possible is because it'll dry on you. If your concerns, I tell you, everyone that uses acrylic paint because of the safety hazards, there's so many alternatives out there for you. Water mixable would be the best one for you. With acrylic, you'd have to layer it in such a way that I would have had to have done that in about like, I don't know, like 3 to 4 minutes. Let it dry and then go back into it. Let it dry and then go back into it. Let it dry. But with oil paint, it's going to stay wet the entire time. But it is possible with acrylic. It's not the best material for you to use if you want to achieve a more naturalistic finish, let's just say. Um, but again, don't be discouraged. It is possible to paint safely with water mixable oil paints. I would suggest this brand to everyone. It is the most similar to traditional oil paints. It's Cobra Talons. That brand will be pretty similar to what you're seeing here. Now we're covering pretty much just a generic brown tannish color. You can get this with just yellow ochre and black. You can get this with cadmium yellow. Kill it off with dioxazine purple, then add a little bit of white to it. You can get this with raw sienna with a little bit of probably say maybe black and orange, raw sienna, black and orange. You can get this with bunch of other um, a bunch of other colors. But once again, what we're doing is we're mapping where the the main lights are gonna fit. So there's a little bit more into it than just light and shadow because there's one big light patch pattern on Doggy. So that light pattern throughout the middle, you see how I'm leaving a gap there of the white of the canvas so I can go into that shape. But again, already, what is it, 4 minutes, and you can see how we're going to go from the left side to the right side by layering wet into wet. Hey, Shweta. Well, sure, you can use acrylic on paper if you want to. I'm never going to discourage anyone from doing what they want to do with art, but I will encourage you to find what you enjoy best. So, if you have used water mixable but you prefer acrylic, that's perfectly fine. If you haven't used water mixable, then give it a try. But yes, this is possible with acrylic on paper, of course. This is possible with acrylic on canvas. This is possible with watercolor. This is possible with gouache, colored pencil, pastel. This is possible with all of them. The main difference here, and I like that you asked this question, because we are talking about the technique involved in painting a puppy. The main thing is that you have the next stage of the process in your mind already. So as I'm filling in these lights here, if I were to be using a different medium, suppose I was using pastel in here, and of course pastel is a dry media, so it's going to remain like that. Suppose I'm using oil pastel, so I'm going to be layering and layering with probably a white pastel and then some kind of brown pastel until I finally get that color, and then I will do the same thing. I'll cover it, and then I'll just layer and layer and layer. Acrylic, I would mix that color, put it down, but I would probably focus a little bit more with the drawing with the pencil first, or not. I have done acrylic videos in the past where I worked in this way, and the main thing is to be a little bit more decisive with where the shapes are going to fit. So I probably would have went with the shadows more definitively with acrylic. Hey KR, welcome, welcome. Now technique-wise, it all looks like a big mess on the face, and on the bottom there's really no structure at all. The snout is hardly even visible. The mouth is hardly even there. But what we're doing is we're killing off the white as much as we can in the shadow side, leaving some of it in the light. KR, no worries, no worries. I get so many different variations of my name these days. It's all good, it's all good. So technique-wise, with a puppy, with a dog, with a cat, with a horse, with a cow, with a chicken, with a bearded dragon, you get my point. You want to work in a method that you're very comfortable with in traditional portraiture. You don't want to treat it any different than traditional portraiture. And if you're not comfortable with portraiture, and I mean of humans, if you're not comfortable with portraiture with humans, then rely on your still life skills if you're very comfortable with still life or landscape. Because it's really, the method is not any different. And if I were to be painting a landscape, I would be using the same techniques. If I were to be painting a still life, I'd be using the same techniques. And that involves going in with shapes and just reasoning with shapes, no matter what the subject matter is. That's the main takeaway from how to paint a puppy. You use the same techniques that you're comfortable with, but different subject matter, and of course more careful subject matter. So for example, if I were to be doing this as a commission, I wouldn't show a client this at this stage. There's no way. I would never show a client this stage unless they for some reason wanted to see a progress image of what it looked like at 8 minutes and 55 seconds. I don't think so. I don't think they would want that. Client doesn't care about that. Client cares about that. Client cares about the finished result and how close to my dog does it look. In my case, there's something very important to me that might not be important to a lot of people out there, but it is very important that the painting remains a painting. I don't want to take it to the level where it's going to be confused for a photograph. If If that happens, then I'm gonna just tell the client, if that's what you want, then go and take a picture yourself and put a filter. There's plenty of filters out there on your phone, on Instagram or something. You don't need to pay thousands of dollars to commission someone to recreate your photograph. If you're gonna commission a painting, you should commission a painting. But then again, I'm not the best business person, as you see. But that's what we're going to tell people. So now with the technique involved here, there is one thing that is very important for you to understand, and that is the bird's eye view. So if you would take this canvas and put it 20 feet away, you're not going to be able to see any detail. You're not going to be able to see whiskers, the eyelashes. You're not going to be able to see the snout. You're not going to be able to see the fur. But if you blur your eyes, if you wear glasses, blur your eyes, look at the screen. It already looks like a dog from a distance. Now, if you blur your eyes, it's the same as being far away. And that's going to be very important. So you always want to have that bird's eye view distance from your painting, so you can create the best results possible. And I know probably most people probably left when I said I wasn't going to focus on the color with Doggy. Another reason is that when I painted this as a studio painting, so it is edited a little bit. So I can't show you absolutely everything because it would last more than 2 hours worth. So when I do a studio painting, I use a handheld palette. I typically don't like having a palette right next to the dog, and I don't like having a second camera on my palette because we tried that for years, and the second camera will always have a different light on it, and then we'll get complaints about the color. Hey, Beanpot. Oh, good. I'm glad you agree, KR. I think we're talking about the client wanting to pay a lot of money to recreate their photograph. And then you're going to have AIs in probably the next 5 years or so that are going to be creating their own paintings with filters. They're probably going to have a Van Gogh filter, or a Sargent filter, or they already have a Rembrandt filter and all that. But that's all still mechanical. Unless a robot reaches the point where it has obtained consciousness to the level of a human, it's still going to be mechanical. But to the untrained eye, it is what it is. So that's another thing that's going to only add to the art world. It won't subtract. But in any case, now with that big shape on the corner of the eye, that's actually giving me a plane change for the fur. And now we're going to get into, instead of just big shapes now, we're going to get into planes. The plane changes for the puppy are just as important as the plane changes on a human portrait. What the difference is with a lot of dogs is that your local color, because humans mainly, not always, of course, there's always exceptions, but humans for the most part, we have our skin color is very similar, not the same, but similar all throughout. This is called local color. For example, the local color of this pen is black, but this pen under different light situations is going to have different shades of it, but for the most part, the local color tends to favor black. With a puppy or with any dog, the local color is going to change because the hair or the fur, depending on the breed of dog that you have, is going to have different patches. So that's going to affect your value range. The white fur, or in this case, the white hair, whichever, actually, I should know the difference, but I'm not a dog expert. I am a loving puppy training expert at this moment. But in this case, I'm pretty sure it's fur, but in this case, the fur is going to uh, have a lighter value range within the white. So the shadow in the white is going to be the same value as some of the midtones in the light in the darker areas of the fur, which is going to break away from the typical light and shadow shapes that you're used to with painting human portraits. So the value range is more important right now than the color. Don't worry about the color. If you're that worried about the color, this is pretty much, you just use yellow ochre, black and white, and for the darker areas, just use a little bit more black and orange, and that's it. That's all you need for this kind of color. Don't confuse yourself and think that this is some intense color that has been differential equations. Use a Laplace transform, or try to find the gradients and divergence of the individual shape of the dog's fur. It's not like that. It's not that complicated. Just something brown that's closer to tan, lighter in some areas, darker in some areas. That's it. Don't confuse yourself with the color. The value is the most important thing here. Like I said, the light of the fur, the shadow on the fur side is going to be somewhat close to the white of the canvas in some areas, but the shadow side is going to be similar value to some of the darks in the darker side of the fur. Again, looking at the finished painting, you can see where that already is starting to take place. Okay, so let's see if we have any questions here. Hey, Janice. KR, boring, soulless AI art is about artists deciding to artist decision making and their vision, seeing the effort and struggle in the brushstrokes. I see, I see. And yeah, you can't take the art away from the human. It just, the human is the art. There's something about how unpredictable people are, but we are predictable in some, given some parameters and some statistics and some data, we are somewhat predictable, but still unpredictable from a day-to-day thing. Who could have predicted that I would pick up this pen instead of picking up the dog treats? Who could have predicted that? I couldn't have predicted that. A machine, a mechanical anything, is going to be predictable because there's a program, there's an algorithm. It is not, it doesn't just function randomly like our human thoughts are somewhat random. The randomness is what makes a human painting much more engaging to the human eye, because we can see that human touch that goes into it, which is something that is lost in highly rendered, nearly photographic paintings, because it can lose a sense of, and I've done this before. I've done super realistic paintings before, and they're cool because of the illusion. For example, it's an illusion. Like, this is a pen. Wait, no, it's not. Actually, it's a sculpture. I carved this out of clay. I carved this pen out of clay. And then I painted it with black paint. And look at that. It looks just like a pen. And if you tell that to someone, that's actually kind of impressive. It's an illusion. It looks like a pen, but it's a sculpture. I spent thousands and thousands of hours perfectly sculpting out this pen. Well, I could have got a 3D print of this pen, couldn't I? Or better yet, I could just buy a pen. There's an idea. I could just buy a pen. So there you go. There's a difference there and a very kind of half-assed way of explaining. Thanks, KR. Thank you, thank you. The shapes are now starting to look like a doggy, and this is 20 minutes in now, so I'm taking a lot more time with this than I usually do with the human portraits. And like I said, I am focusing on the plane changes, most importantly focusing on the plane changes given the local values, local colors. So for example, the tan fur has light, it has shadow, it has midtones. The white fur has light, shadow, midtones. The snout is a little bit darker, patches somewhere in it. There's some darker patches. So there's definitely some different shapes in the front of the snout. And of course, the eyes and the nose have a different local value that is darker, and the inside of the ears as well. Now, each breed is going to have characteristics about them that differentiate them. So this is a Shiba Inu. The Shiba Inu is known for, other than their strong independence, they're known for their pointy fox-like ears. So I will bring Puppy over here at some point in the video. He's in his puppy-proof space right now, which is the kitchen over there. But I will bring him out eventually, and you will see. Now, this picture, interestingly enough, this picture was taken about when we just got him. So he was 11 weeks. Now he's 14 weeks. Very different dog, much bigger. So, which is cool. I like that he's getting bigger. We'll probably get harassed less when we walk around in public with everyone wanting to pet him and all that stuff. So, I actually do like watching him grow. But in any case, you'll see he looks much more grown up now than he does in this painting. Now that we have all of these planes on the doggy's face, on the doggy's body, we're going to start to create more and more depth to it. So we're going to start adding more and more structure. Now, unlike with a human portrait, we would probably keep it very minimal and then refine those minimum shapes that we have. In here, because doggy has much more, we're going to actually do the opposite. We're going to add more planes, add more complexity to it, and then work out the likeness within that group of shapes. And at this point, I'm going to ask everyone a question. So it looks like the attendance is probably at an all-time low. It might be, you might just be bored of me, or it might be the time change. We had the time changed over here. We went back an hour over the weekend. So I'm just going to ask everyone a simple question. Where in the world are you? I am in Alexandria. You don't have to tell me exactly. You can just tell me what country or whatever. But I am in Alexandria, Virginia, home of absolutely almost no art community. Very depressing area, but I have moved here, and you just live with the choices that you make. Um, an artless community, Alexandria, Virginia. Um, other than the Torpedo Factory and other things like that. But I mean, those are classes. It's not like I can just walk in there and paint with people like I used to back in Maryland. Represent Maryland, my favorite state ever. Um, but I can be biased. Now, like I said, adding more planes. Underneath of the mouth, we added more planes. Onto the left, our left, we're adding more planes. So Gene, you're from New York City, Beanpot, Boston. Karen from Texas, Susan from Queens. Welcome, welcome. Matthew from I don't know how to pronounce it. Oh, Ontario, Canada. Canvas Dancer. Central Lakes County, Minnesota. Lady Death, Singapore. Awesome. Nice variety of different places. You know, I am at fault for something. For years, I would tell people, just look up your local art college. There's going to be an art group around you. Just look up just go on your local Facebook and you'll find art groups everywhere. That's what I used to tell people. Geez, I didn't know. I didn't know that such a thing as an artless community existed. Let me tell you, back where I lived, there was art groups on the weekends in the local community college. There was art groups on the weekends in at least two different art schools around the area. There was art groups in the weeknights. I could go and paint from life probably 5 times a day if I could, 5 times a week if I could afford it. Here, there's nothing. Like, there really is nothing. It is terrible. The only thing we have here is restaurants and stores to go buy expensive things. It is an artless place. And if I want to go paint with my people, I gotta drive an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's terrible. So let's see, we've got MYMG1000 Slovenia. Welcome, welcome. Adriana. Oh, from Paris. Thanks for watching from Paris. Maverick from the Philippines. Awesome. That's the home of Efren Reyes. I'm sure you might know that name. Awesome, awesome. KR from the Netherlands. Maverick said maybe it's my mission in this area to spread art. I think this area is mainly just tech, CEOs and computer science people and doctors and lawyers and I don't know. I don't know, Maverick. I kind of feel like I've been put in a cabin in the middle of the woods somewhere. It's that kind of area, which is why Puppy over here is saving me. I mean, I've played pool nonstop, but you know that's not as much of a connection. It is though. I'm lying. It is. Pool has saved me as well, but Puppy is definitely has added much more light to my days. I would like to think that, Maverick. I would like to think I could spread art to this area, but who knows? Who knows? More planes. So now the cheekbone. You see that those planes that I added right underneath of the eyes gives me cheekbone structures. Very much reminiscent of now the skeletal structure. So you want to think about the skeletal structure of the puppy adder. How far out is the snout? How caved in? Do we have a pug or do we have a wolf? Do we have a Doberman or do we have a Rottweiler? So the snout is about medium. It's less than a dachshund, more than a pug. Snout is a little bit more pointy, but not quite that pointy. Yeah, it is rough, KR. It is. The Beanpot, lots of art groups near you, but they're mostly retirees who meet in the middle of the work day. We had a mix back in Maryland. Represent Maryland. Uh, More than just the home of. Um, I'm not even gonna go there. More than just meets the eye, Maryland. But anyway, um, yeah, we had night groups, which were mainly people that worked during the day, and then during the daytime, yeah, mainly retired people that were meeting up. Yeah, Maverick. I'm not so much of a planner myself, but maybe I should be. Maybe I should be. I don't know. I don't know. And now that we're in the painting, putting in these plane changes, it's important to mention the, I would say, the consistency of the paint. I am only thinning out the paint with spike lavender and Gamsol, so I'm only using solvent. And the consistency of the paint is a little bit thinner with the shadow, with the darker areas, and then it gets really thick around the light. And at some point, I even start to throw in palette knife. Initially, in this painting, I thought that I would use just a dark background. And I had a painting in mind that I was trying to emulate, which is a John Singer Sargent portrait of a dog. And the dog, right above the top, he wrote Pointy, which I think was the name of the dog, Pointy. So I thought that's what I would do. And this painting would only take me about an hour, 10 minutes, an hour, 20 minutes. And then I decided against it. I decided I would put a background. And I don't really show that in the footage because this isn't about that. This is about Puppy. Um, so eventually I do change my mind and put in the background, as you see here. Not that developed, but developed enough. You can see it's a puppy bed. Very rough, very painterly, and that's the idea I had in mind. But again, this is how I'm developing this puppy portrait. So, here's my next question for everyone. We're going to keep this very related to this how to paint a puppy. So, my question to you is can you think of your earliest memory of having a pet? Your earliest memory, and my earliest memory is I still remember him to this. I had to have been like 4 years old, 5 years old. A German Shepherd named Fluffy. Long before uh, I knew anything about the comedian named Fluffy. But he was a German Shepherd mix. And I remember he had one eye that was different than the other eye. One eye was blue and the other eye was not blue. What is your earliest memory of a pet that you had? It could be a goldfish, it could be a tortoise, it could be a snail. What is your earliest memory of a pet that you had uh, growing up as a child? I've pretty much always had dogs growing up. I mean, from as early as I could remember. When I moved out of the place I was living in before, we had a Chihuahua over there, and I spent 2 months living here, probably 3 months living here, uh, without having a dog, and it was something. I'm not used to it. MYMG guinea pigs for 9 years. Wow. My cousins used to have guinea pigs, but I've never had a guinea pig. I remember seeing them out playing. And as we start to develop these planes of the puppy, this is a long-term type video. So most of the YouTube videos out there are time lapses, or they just skip a lot of steps. Here we do skip some, but not that many. So you can always fast forward through this, and at the end, I'm gonna have a summary of all of it, so you can have more of a concise understanding of it. So Canvas Dancer, as a munchkin, you had a little chihuahua. Cool. Dangio, you had a goat and a cat. Oh, that's cool. A goat. Matthew, your father never allowed you to have a dog or a cat. I at least remember was a turtle when you were around 6. Oh, cool, cool. Turtles are pretty awesome. They require a lot of work, but they're pretty awesome animals. So Beanpot, your family had a cat. It would carry things around the house like a dog. Oh, wow. Jean Joseph, chickens, pigs, sheep, goats, and cows. Wow. Lady Death, 2 St. Bernards, Golden Retriever. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, yeah, most of us, our earliest pets have probably passed on by now. And you know the saying, we as humans, we don't deserve, um, we don't deserve to live in the same world as these animals. Um, you know, many people say we don't deserve dogs, we don't deserve cats, but we can love them as much as we can, and they have unconditional love for us. And even a reptile, like a turtle. Um, I've lived with turtles before, and even though they can bite you and scratch you up and have seemingly no affection for you, there's still a connection that you have with them. And I used to keep tarantulas before I moved to this location. This location, Fairfax County, tarantulas are illegal. I hate this place. I hate this place. But anyway, yeah, even tarantulas. Even though I got bit by one of my tarantulas, I still cared for them. I mean, even though they had no, they're they're basically one step above evolution of a plant. Like they almost have no brains. They basically have no brains, tarantulas. But caring for them, I created a bond with them, and there was enrichment there in both my life and their life. And it doesn't matter the pet. I mean, as long as you care for them the best that you can, as long as it's not like an alligator or something like that that you probably shouldn't be keeping as a pet unless you have the means to do it. It adds something to your life. It is a very special thing to be able to have. So thanks for sharing all that information, everyone. Because I know that everyone had to have at least had some kind of pet, even if you don't have one now. So now with the planes on the bottom of the fur, the lightmost area, I covered the dark now of the shadow, and eventually we're going to make that darker. But the light, I'm using the white of the canvas as my guide, the light of the canvas as my guide for just how far I can go with the light, which is not something I can do if I have a toned canvas. So I'm using the white of the canvas as my kind of my gauge, kind of a little cheat code for how light I can go. And now you see that I'm covering a little bit more of the dark there. So from Janice, you had a dog named Cookie. You were 4. He bit you on the upper lip. And let's see, when you tried to take his bone, you still have the scar to this day. Your parents rehomed him. He's a cute brown puppy. Uh-oh. Well, yeah, there's always downsides pets as well. I can't say I've ever been bitten really bad like that before. Um, Worst bite I think I ever had was probably on the forearm from a dachshund. I think I still have the scar. I don't know. Yeah, I have some jaws from a dachshund. His name was Brownie, and I was probably in the sixth grade or the seventh grade. Um, I was trying to get him out from under his bed, not his bed, under my. I think it was under my bed. He was under my bed and he wouldn't get out. So I was trying to get him out, and then he bit my arm. Um, I was bleeding all over the place, but I still have the scar, but it wasn't that bad. So Adriana, you had a turtle, but she escaped in your grandma's garden 1 week later. Then only pictures of Persian cats. So in adult time, you had 3 Persian cats, 1 ginger. Oh, good. I'm glad this will inspire you to paint his portrait. Go for it, I would say. Looking at the shapes from a distance. So always think about the distance. So from 20 feet away, or if you blur your eyes, it definitely looks like a dog. And if you blur your eyes, it already looks like a very convincing dog. And the closer you get, it still looks like a dog. It's only when you get about maybe 2 feet away that you notice that it's still unfinished, that the eyes are still not quite, the information for the eyes isn't there yet. The snout, the nose isn't quite there yet, but it is all going to be refined soon. But most of the important information is already there. And even though this is only about 41 minutes in, I have 14 years painting experience. So 10 years ago, even, I probably wouldn't have been this quick to get this much information down. But nonetheless, all it is working with shapes. Shapes of value. Like I said, don't worry about the color even in the slightest. It's just a dark brown tan and a white and a gray. Don't worry about the color. So a little bit more refinement to the nose. Now the consistency of the darks are pretty thin, so the paint is a little bit thinner. And I'll give you some advice here that you may have already heard. But for sharper edges, you want to use typically thinner paint. Not necessarily. You could have the same consistency of paint and just put like a really sharp edge. But in general, I would say go thinner with sharper edges, thicker with softer edges. Lady Death, how long have I painting just portraits? I mean, I got formal training back in 2008, 2009. Yeah, that's 14 years, I think. I mean, how many years ago was 2008? I should be able to do that in my head, but I don't feel like it.
Still on it.
That's how slow the internet is on my, jeez.
It was 14 years ago.
Thanks, Siri. 14 years ago. See, my mind is focused on narrating the video, so couldn't do that, even though I have a math degree. But anyway, 14 years, yeah, 14 years. But I always drew as a kid. I mean, I've drawn cars and all kinds of things. Oh, thank you so much, Stephanie Thompson. Thank you so much for the super chat. And given there's only 12 minutes on the video, for the super chat, we are going to bring Hugo, our little puppy here. Thank you so much for the super chat. Now that we've added the eyes on there, you can see the highlights are the most important thing because the eyes are very dark. But there's still a little part of the sclera there to show. So let me go get puppy Hugo so you can see him. Thanks for the super chat. Come on, come here. Let's say hi to everyone. Doggy, doggy. To show you how much bigger he is now. Thank you so much for the super chat, Stephanie Thompson. Hugo is very, very happy with your super chat. He's over there stretching. Thank you so much. Here he is. Since we're trying to train him, I try not to keep him as elevated as this, but to say hello, here he is. Here is puppy Hugo. And yes, I know you're not supposed to play with a puppy like this, because when he grows up, you know, he's got to know that we're in charge. But I mean, who can resist a puppy? So this is Hugo. He is much, much bigger than he was back then. They grow really fast. So thank you so much, Stephanie Thompson, for the super chat. So Rocky, uh, yeah, with I don't even know if I remember anything past Calculus 3. I mean, obviously, I remember some real analysis stuff. I wasn't too good with number theory and anything that involved modeling data sets, I was terrible at in math. Physics, I only got as far as physics 2, so electricity, magnetism. I didn't get past that with physics. I wish I did. I find gravity to be really uh, mesmerizing. Oh, thanks, Susan. So canvas dancer. You have a puppy too. I remember Sienna. You've been wanting to paint her, but will be quite challenging. She's cute and cuddly, but basically a fluff of burnt sienna. Hard to see structures. Quite a challenge. Well, the best thing I can say is just go for it. You've got nothing to lose. Do some sketches in paint, and you'll be surprised. And of course, I can always help you on Patreon. So if you need help with the puppy portrait, I can help you with that. Hey, Stephanie Thompson. Yeah, he is. He is something a little bit more than Grumpy Cat. Definitely something more. So we have a super chat puppy here. Anytime we get a super chat, everyone, we will we'll bring out puppy, or we'll just bring him out whenever. But definitely thankful for any super chats out there. And I used the back end of the brush, in case anyone missed it. I used the back end of the brush for the whiskers. His whiskers are still just coming in, but the back end of the brush is enough to basically peel out some paint and have a sense of light and dark indicated really quickly. An alla prima technique that's been used for centuries. But yeah, back end of the brush, you could use a palette knife, you can use a hairpin, anything you want. You can use your nail, anything you want to subtract. Now with 7 minutes remaining in the footage, don't worry. Once the video ends, we're gonna go over the entire thing again. Um, I'm going to ask you, what would you like me to talk about next time? So what would you like me to focus on next time? And at the same time, I'm going to ask for your help here on YouTube. So if you've been watching these streams and you haven't subscribed to the YouTube or liked the YouTube at all, that would definitely help. I usually don't ask, but at this point, my YouTube channel is kind of at an all-time low. So if you haven't, that would be a way to help us out. Another thing would be to, if you haven't written a comment on the stream, just say hello. That's an easy way to help us out. Just say hello, and that will help get more people interested. So Stephanie Thompson, you're interested in perspectives. Okay, so perspective is one thing we can focus on. Doggy has passed gas. Oh, he does this all the time. Oh, oh man, one of the things about having a dog is they fart. Oh man. Oh. And yes, please like the video if you haven't liked it. So most of the demo is now complete. So the dog, painting the puppy, is the most important thing. As you see here, we're only going to put just a few sketches, a few brush strokes there for the feet. You're barely going to see the paws at all because the paws are actually covered by his toys. So the face doesn't change all that much from what you're seeing on the left to what you're seeing on the right. Doesn't change all that much. The background, which is his bed, which I'm holding over here, is going to be added off camera for the most part. But again, the bed is just light and shadow shapes. But this isn't a video about how to paint a portrait of a puppy bed or a dog bed. So, but the puppy is the most important thing here. So my MG painting birds, that is definitely one thing we could do. And now we're going to go through this really quickly. I did edit this part. So last minute decision, not that last minute, but at some point I decided I would add the background. So just like magic, the background is in there. Palette knife, as you see, for some of the texture of the toy. That toy is this one. So that little yellow thing in the corner is this. I don't even know what this is. It's some kind of smiley face. If anyone knows what this is, you are much smarter than me. I don't know what that is. So far, for suggestions for the next video, we've got perspectives and painting birds. Painting birds in perspective. Um, that could be a thing. Paint a leopard with cobra. So from Paula, paint a leopard with cobra water mixable paints. That's a possibility. That's something I can do. So we've got perspective, birds, leopards, with water mixable oil paint. All right. And this is just adding a little bit more light. And again, we're going to go through this really quickly. His collar, it has a ribbon on it. But when he's inside throughout the day, most of the time he's not wearing that. But the reason he was wearing that when he was on his bed during this was because I wanted it in the painting. And yeah, I put his collar off, his bow off to the side instead of being right smack in the front or somewhat behind him, just to add something a little bit odd and oddness to it. And we're just guesstimating the shape for this little ring there for his name tag. Hey, Jonas. And now his name tag collar. Oh, thanks, Jonas. I'm glad you liked the puppy portrait. And I'm using the back end of the brush again, sketching out the name Hugo. Pretty much chicken scratch, not very mechanical. And that is about it with this one. Again, forgive me for skipping the background, but most of the difficulty here is not the background, it's Doggy, and planes involved in Doggy. So we are now going to backtrack and we're going to go back to the beginning and we're going to look at the most important things involved in creating this painting. Number one is going to be materials. So we started off and we did the whole thing here with traditional oil paint thinned out um, with part spike lavender and Gamsol. Here's the reason: spike lavender and Gamsol. Gamsol alone should be safe enough to use in a one-bedroom apartment with ventilation, with no harm to a puppy, um, no harm to the respiratory system. Spike lavender has no petroleum distillate effects, so that alone would be perfect for thinning out paint. However, it smells really strong. So in order to cut back on the smell, I did a 50-50, so it didn't smell as much and it's safer for the air. Therefore, we have a very non-toxic air quality. Air quality in here is probably better than air quality in most basements. Material is very important there. It's traditional oil paints worked on an 8x10 inch linen panel. Okay, thin out the paint, get the silhouette. That's most important. So let's take a look here. Painting. Let's have them side by side, and I'll move my face here so you can see. Okay, so let's look at the most important elements here. Silhouette. Quickly knock out the silhouette. Get your um, placement. Next, fill in these dark shapes. And earlier, someone asked about, can you do this with acrylics? And the answer is no. You can't layer wet on wet with acrylics because they're gonna dry on you. But you can layer wet into dry with acrylics. It'll be harder to create smooth transitions, but it is possible. So anyway, now that we're adding wet into wet, you see how we are adding the planes, dark planes, light planes. This starts to sculpt out the face. Here it's still kind of a little bit in an awkward stage. The doggy looks kind of like a robot. More planes, more planes. Now, usually in a people portrait, I try to keep it minimal shapes and make those minimum shapes as sophisticated as possible. Animal portrait, puppy portrait, because there's different local values, different local colors, different all kinds of details and things like that, it's the opposite. I'm actually going for more shapes, more stuff, and making sure that all of those planes starts to give me the shapes that I want. Okay, now you see very important moment just happened there. From there to there. What happened? What happened there? The symmetry happened. The snout was a little bit crooked. The face was a little bit out of alignment, and then we just a few simple brush strokes there, put it in alignment, and there it is. Now that it is in alignment, now all we're gonna do is gonna add more structure to the existing structure, just like when you're think about building a house. Start with the foundation, then eventually you end up putting and then you put the gutters, the shutters on, but you start with the foundation. More and more shapes, more and more information. Our next critical area is going to be there. So from here to there, what changed? We added more curvature around the mouth. So from here to there, more curvature around the mouth. So everything is turning. And that's what those plane changes are giving me. The turns. And now we have the lights for the eyes. Lights for the eyes. A little more sophistication here and there. Still trying to keep it painterly. Like I said, I don't want this to be confused with a photograph. And yes, I do want to, I do like the idea of being able to do commissions in the future. But who knows? Maybe I'm just gonna paint a bunch of pictures of animals and scenes, and maybe you'd be interested in buying them instead of commissioning me to paint a portrait, because who knows. But anyway, now the light for the feet, and that's pretty much it. So as you see, some slight changes from left to right happened off camera. Not very much, but some changes here and there. Refinement of some edges, mainly on the left side relative to us of the doggy's face. But if you look at the right side relative to us, not many things changed there. And of course, we added the collar and all that stuff. But the main portrait of the puppy is all there for you in camera. And I will post this on my Instagram in case you're interested in recreating this painting and using this YouTube video as your guide to recreating this painting. So that's about it for today. There's our finished painting. Thanks, Susan. Thank you, Paula. I'm glad you liked the portrait, Matthew. I'm glad you like his smile and his eyes, Canvas Dancer. Okay, so I asked everyone what you would like me to do for the next video, and we've got perspectives, painting birds, paint a leopard with Cobra water mixable oil paints. Paula, I think I'm gonna go with yours. Paint a leopard with water mixable oil paints. Why? Because that is so specific. That is the most specific suggestion I think I've had. Not only did you tell me what to paint, but you told me what to use. So we're gonna paint a leopard with water mixable oil paints. For better or for worse, that's what we're gonna paint next time. So hopefully that will be something that you'll be interested in seeing. Hey, Angela. Oh, no worries. I'm glad to see you here. Haven't seen you in a while. Hope everything is good. On the next live chat on Zoom, you'll be able to meet him. Oh, thanks, Adriana. And by the way, everyone, if you're interested, of course, in taking your art education with me further, please check out my online classes on my Patreon, which is linked in the description box of this video. But I will also post the link to my Patreon here on the chat, and I will pin it so you will have it available for those of you that are watching this as a pre-recorded video. Thank you so much, Stephanie Thompson, for the super chat. And don't think I forgot about your suggestion on perspectives. I will make a note of talking more about perspective in general. Got my pen here, so I will make a note of it. Make a note of it to focus on perspective. Okay, I'll make a note to focus on perspectives. And thank you so much for the super chat. And we will talk about perspectives, painting the leopard. I'm gonna write that down again. So my memory's not that bad, but I'm gonna write it down. So leopard with cobra talons. Let me make sure I got that right. Leopard. Okay, I got it down. That's what we will be doing. And yes, I will talk about perspectives. So that's about it for today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you again so much for the super chat, Stephanie Thompson. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your support. All of your support helps keep me afloat and helps keep Puppy well fed, well groomed, well taken care of. Here he is, just falling asleep. He basically just fell asleep on my hands like this. This is what Puppy does. I wish he was this calm all the time, but he might be dreaming. Did you see his paw move? He does that. He dreams and he makes little noises. He is this calm, everyone. He falls asleep while I'm holding him like this. Is you see his ear twitching? He's gotta be dreaming. Of course, I'm not gonna keep him like this a long time because it might hurt his neck. So, put him on the side. What more can you ask for in life, though? I mean, seriously. What more can you ask for in life? All right, so thank you so much, everyone. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I wish you all the very best in all of your artwork, and I'll see you on the next one.